Great. Well, this is Lyndaine, and welcome to the Labuan Fintech Association interview series. And here with me today is Ms. Farah Jaafar-Crossby, the CEO of Labuan International Business and Financial Center, Inc. How are you today, Farah?
Good. How are you?
Very good.
Keeping well and safe in Hong Kong as we are in KL?
Yes, absolutely. It's important. Especially we're very busy here, so very important to keep ourselves healthy.
True.
Great. So, well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity that you've given us today. I know you guys are so busy. So the aim of this interview is for us to get to know more about Labuan and perhaps Labuan IBFC, and also the role of Labuan IBFC with regards to its support that it gives to the Labuan Fintech Association. So first off, can you tell us more about Labuan? Where it is exactly and what is it like?
It is an island off Borneo. Okay, what it is actually it's Malaysia's foreign financial system. So Malaysia, as you know, has got an onshore financial system, and we've got a mid-shore financial system. And the reason we call it mid-shore is because it's not box standard offshore. As part of Malaysia, it's important that Labuan IBFC, International Business and Financial Center, adheres to a very strict and stringent level of regulation and governance. So because of that, we've had to kind of create that narrative about us being mid-shore, as it were. And the reason we're mid-shore is that whilst we adhere to international standards in money laundering, supervision, regulation, being part of Malaysia, and under the Malaysian Ministry of Finance, we do have a very facilitative regime. So we have a regime that allows for a single regulator, a one-stop regulator. We have a regime that allows for tax neutrality, currency neutrality, and really our role is to intermediate finance, business, wealth, risk management in Asia, predominantly in Asia. We like to say that we're in Asia by Asians for Asians. And so, you know, with regards to, that is with regards to the jurisdiction per se. And with regards to Labuan IBFC's, my role, I guess. Our role here in Labuan IBFC Inc. is really to market develop, to grow the ecosystem. And the key ecosystem for us is the digital ecosystem.
Right. Sounds good.
Yeah, we're keen to, well, I want to take a step back a little bit and talk about our ethos, our digital ethos. Our digital ethos is premised on the fact that we don't look at the fourth revolution, the digital revolution, distributed ledger technology, DLT, and you know, we don't look at it as something that's foreign. Right. To us, it's a way of, it's an alternative, or it's a new way of collapsing processes and structures. So our approach has been very facilitative. Our approach has been very open. And to date, we've got more than 44 license holders in that whole digital space in Labuan. And that, you know, the space ranges from digital fund managers, digital securities exchanges like Fusang, you've got crypto exchanges, you've got payment gateways, you've got token issuance entities. And our approach has been very clear in the sense that what we've taken is a toolbox mentality. Labuan has been blessed, I'd like to think, with a range of structures and solutions and licenses. And the way we look at digital is that we allow for a digital option of all of these licenses for as long as the regulator is comfortable with a level of supervision and regulation that is required for an entity like that.
Right. So the 44 license that you granted, can you tell us more about where they're from? Are they all from Asia, you would say?
Not all. We've just actually literally this week licensed a European exchange as well to be part of to be the part of the Labuan, what I like to call the Labuan digital family.
Right.
Yeah, because I, you know, as someone that's been in financial services all her life, I find that the digital space, everyone's very open in the digital space. You know, the premise is very different from box standard financial services. And so we've got players from all over, from Japan, from Malaysia, from Europe, from Asia, obviously, from India. We've got token issuers from India, token issuers from Japan. We've got some large names, smaller names. We also allow for a payment gateway license.
Right.
And of course, as you know, we licensed our first digital bank, the China Construction Bank, as a digital bank to kind of support their activities out of Beijing.
Okay.
The Labuan branch, well, the China Construction Bank in Labuan links directly to Beijing, and Beijing has a lot of initiatives in the digital space, and we wanted to facilitate that. So yeah, so it's been a very interesting time for us growing in this space, and it's a great space to be in. Really, I enjoy it. We enjoy it.
That's very interesting, Farah, right? Given the fact that you've mentioned where these companies are coming from, it's obviously I was thinking, as you know, a lot of them coming from Southeast Asia or maybe Hong Kong like us, but you have someone from Europe and you have someone from Japan. So if I'm a company and kind of like looking at, hey, you know what, where can I get my license? Do I choose, say, Cayman, BVI, or Labuan? I mean, why would I choose Labuan?
All jurisdictions have a reason for their existence, okay?
Right.
Some of my bestest friends work in Caymans and the BVI, so I'm not, you know, I think it's horses for courses. You're not going, I mean, we are in a wholesale market, right? And you have to understand, Labuan is very unique. Labuan is unique because we are right in the middle of Asia.
Right.
So although the origins of the company might come from Europe or South America or America, their business model needs for them to have a presence in Asia, because Asia is where they feel they are going to be able to grow in. And in a lot of instances, they need a home.
Yeah.
They need a home. They need a home in Asia, and that's where Labuan plays its role. And why Labuan? Why not somewhere further out?
Yes.
Because we are in Asia, and if Asia is your market, why would you look anywhere else? Right? If you asked me that same question, and I'm a very candid person, right? So if you asked me that same question and you said to me, oh, Farah, why not Singapore, Hong Kong? Right?
Correct.
I think a lot of it has got to do with the fact that we are well regulated, so we're still part of Malaysia, number one.
Right.
Number two, we're tax neutral, currency neutral, right? Number three, we are more cost efficient than some other Asian jurisdictions.
Right.
So in order to set up in Labuan or set up in Kuala Lumpur, the cost of, number one, the license per se, the operational cost, is a fraction. It's a fraction of what you would pay in Hong Kong or in Singapore. And you have a one-stop regulator. So for example, if you were to set up a securities dealer, so let's say you want to issue securities tokens. Instead of working with maybe 2 or 3 regulators as you would in other jurisdictions globally, in Labuan, you only deal with the Labuan Financial Services Authority.
Right.
So I think you cannot dilute the importance and the facilitativeness and the ease of dealing with a one-stop regulator, right? I think that's important to understand and appreciate. So Labuan is, and historically Labuan has been, you know, and I just want to talk a little bit about the background of Labuan, because it's actually our 30th year this year. So we've been around 30 years, yeah. So we're a midlife jurisdiction. We're nowhere near young. We're not that old yet.
Right.
So this year is our 30th year. And the reason Labuan started was really to facilitate Malaysian businesses going out of Malaysia. So if you throw yourself back 30 years ago, you'd find that a lot of Malaysian businesses were starting to move out into Asia. and we wanted to facilitate Malaysian businesses. Since then, however, 60% of all the business that we do in Labuan, and that spans the entire spectrum of financial services, all the way from equipment leasing to digital to banking to insurance to wealth management, fund management. 65% of it is all foreign. So really what we've done over the 30 years is that we've morphed from a very domestic-centric intermediation center to a regional wholesale finance intermediation center, right? And it's important to note that with the 30 years comes a certain level of experience, understanding, and appreciation as to how this business is run. You know, I always like to say that, you know, jurisdictions like Labuan, we are the Intel inside the laptop.
Right.
So in a lot of financials, in a lot of financial transactions, you see the ends, right? You don't see what goes on in the middle, the clearinghouse, as it were. So if you were to understand Labuan as that, that's the best way of explaining it, really.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I find very interesting is basically the regulations of different jurisdictions, right? So you have this very, very established cities, say, for example, in Hong Kong. And one of the things that basically, I would say, the drive of the regulators is basically seeing what's in place in the past and then continuously kind of like changing it just to kind of go along the way with the innovations that's happening in the financial services in general, which would sort of incorporate more and more initiatives that would drive up, say, you know, the digitalization initiatives at a lot of companies. So whether a traditional bank going virtual, or say, you know, a fresh new company that's putting together a challenger bank, for example. So with Labuan, would you say how robust is the sort of initiative that the system and jurisdiction actually kind of adapts in order to incorporate and sort of like welcome all this kind of like new initiatives when it comes to financial services?
Well, I mean, by very nature, centers like ours, like wholesale intermediation centers like ours, are very nimble. Right? We have to be. And that's why when you look at that whole space and that growth of the digital space, well, what was originally known as fintech, you know, you know, fintech is a very specialized area within the digital space. So, but if you look at the adoption of the digital space and what the digital space is able to do and the jurisdictions that facilitate the digital space, from get-go, like 2 or 3 years ago, you'll find that actually predominantly it's always been centers like ours, because we're open to innovation, because innovation is in our blood. We have to innovate to stay on top. So, you know, I have colleagues in Labuan Financial Services Authority, and all they do is sit there and look at policies, they look at structures, they look at how we can be more innovative, whilst at the same time straddling that need for regulation. So in the digital space, what we've come to understand is actually there are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of jurisdictions that, or there are a lot of players that would rather not be licensed, and some players would rather be licensed. So our focus is really very much on players that want to be licensed, want to be supervised, want to be seen as, or are actually not be seen, are well regulated, you know, and it's in this space and it's in this sphere that we believe actually there can be a coming together of legacy finance and the digital space, because there has to be a common thread, and the common thread has to be regulatory and supervisory in nature, you know, and that's why I think you'll find that there is a migration from certain jurisdictions that are maybe less prone to licensing to regulate to jurisdictions that are wanting to be that want to regulate their digital players, and digital players that want to be regulated. I mean, we get calls on a daily basis or weekly basis saying, Farah, we're already regulated here, but we really want to be regulated in a place where we understand that it's of a global standard. So that's a sign of maturity of their digital space. And with that maturity will come acceptance.
That's amazing. I think that's a lot of the thing that's one of the biggest factors that a lot of this fintech companies actually would look at, because it's fintech against regulators almost.
Yeah, it's always this concept. So when we first started exploring this space, people say to us, "Oh, so where are you from?" and all these things. And then when we started talking to them, we're like, "Oh, you're legacy finance." It's like such a dirty word. But really, what you'll find is that in order for the digital space to grow and to be accepted, there has to be that common belief, as it were. And that has to be with regards to supervision and regulation. And that's why we've seen such a significant growth in our jurisdiction vis-a-vis the digital space.
Amazing. So having said that, what are the initiatives that are currently in place which makes Labuan, say, a catalyst to drive and bring together traditional institutions, fintechs globally and regionally, and of course, like government agencies as well?
So one of the things we've done is that we've reached out to all the fintech associations and the access blockchain associations in Asia. We're members of all of that. We obviously, hand on heart, support wholeheartedly the Labuan Fintech Association and the work that's been done there with regards to growing the ecosystem. Now, I think that's one area that people, generally people need to understand, is that the fintech space is not defined by the industry that it works in, right? It is defined by the process it uses. So when you look at a fintech association like the Labuan Fintech Association, it's important to note that the Labuan Fintech Association is growing from a very strong base. Now, let me go back a little bit to explain why I say that. Labuan IBFC itself is home to more than 600, 700 licensed financial institutions. And they're global banks. We've got 55 banks, 220 insurance licenses, everything from, huge insurance license holders, global, to captive managers, to brokers. And we've got Islamic finance, we've got fund management, we've got wealth management. All the verticals that Labuan offers can be digitized.
Yes.
Right? So it's not just about, let's say, oh, the Labuan Insurance Association and everyone is about insurance. No. It's about a little bit of everything, and it's about the digital space that you operate within. So we find that with the Labuan Fintech Association, we are keen to ensure there's diversity, and we'd like to support the Labuan Fintech Association in any initiatives they do in order to create diversity within the association, so that there is an understanding that this is an alternative way of conducting financial services or financial intermediation. It's not about a certain business type. So it's not about banking necessarily, right? And I think that's why the distinction of the association is important to understand. It's not just about a specific industry. It is about a specific way of doing business. Correct. And a specific ethos, I believe, and mentality that comes with doing it.
I agree with you on that. Last two questions, I would say. So how do you think Labuan IBFC supports the fintech ecosystem, or I would say digital finance ecosystem, in terms of, say, providing additional channels of support, for example, research, perhaps fundraising, or even talent development?
Really, we stand guided by the Labuan Fintech Association. To be honest with you, we serve the jurisdiction as a market development tool. So the regulator that funds us in order to grow the ecosystem. And our job here is to first and foremost disseminate information about Labuan. Second, be the first point of contact, just in case anybody, any interested parties keen on understanding Labuan a bit better. And number three, but most importantly, is to listen to our stakeholders. listen to people who are players in the market, like the Labuan Fintech Association. So we are in no way, shape or form able to tell you what your industry needs. It's not our role.
Understand.
Our role is to facilitate it. So if the Labuan Fintech Association feels that there is a manpower pipeline issue, then we'll be happy to bring it up. So really we work, and I always like to say this even when I deal with legacy finance guys, we work as the app, right? So we work as the app between the regulator and the market. And with an app, you either can push information or pull. So the Fintech Association, for example, could come to us and say, oh, you know, this is something that we want to do. Do you think the regulator would be open to it, or how can you facilitate it? Or the regulator to come to us and say, you know, could you go away to that fintech fraternity that you keep talking about and understand from them what they need, what are the new tools that they're after, are there any particular type of licenses that they want, you know, how can we facilitate that growth? And so our role is like this app that pulls and pushes, but we are here to support. And I have to say, right, that's a very rare commodity. A unit like ours here is a very rare commodity within other jurisdictions. So we are independent, but we are related to the market as much as we are related to the regulator. And we're non-commercial.
That is very enlightening. I think that's absolutely correct, because a lot of times, so it's either, again, like to my point earlier, it's always like fintech versus, say, the regulator, right? So there's no middleman, and it's kind of, it's very awkward to have that conversation.
No, and that's the thing that I realized actually in the last 2 years dealing in this space, is that it's a different language.
Correct.
Right? It's a different mentality. The fintech fraternity is or the digital fraternity is extremely open, extremely sharing. There is, you know, it comes with the mentality of DLT, as it were, right? Whereas legacy guys are almost the opposite, you know, and sometimes there's a mismatch in that understanding. And when you need, and that's where an entity like ours kicks in to kind of say, wait, hold on, this is what they mean. This is how it's done. And the other way around, to go to the digital fraternity and say, look, listen, I know this is how you're running stuff, but in this other legacy world, this is how it works. Now, it's that coming together that's required.
Correct.
Right? And that's our role, because we like to think that we kind of understand both sides enough, not very deep, but enough to kind of bridge it. And then once there is an understanding of reference points and semantics, then the conversation can be direct.
Absolutely.
You know, then the conversation can go off into, you know, then you guys can go off into the sunset with the regulator and do your thing, and we're happy for that to happen, you know. So we're almost like an agony aunt in a way.
So one last question, Farah. So if I am a company looking to get a license and Labuan is one of my top choices, so where do I start, or how do I start?
Well, anybody digital will first go to our social media. They will go to our websites, obviously. Our website is loaded with information. So we've got a few brochures. We even hosted a bespoke event last year. All the videos are online. So you get a taste of the jurisdiction. What's important to understand is that we don't run sandboxes.
Right.
Okay, it's a live license that you're applying for, number one. Number two, we adhere to international standards of regulation. So the requirements for anti-money laundering, the fit and proper, you know, you've got to tick all those boxes in order to consider Labuan. Okay?
Yes.
Number three is that whatever your questions are, you can write into us via a specific email address, or you can write into me directly. I'm on LinkedIn, just hook me up. That's fine. or you can, you can come in, well, not less physically now, but, we can organize a call.
Yes.
And this is that facilitative nature that we offer, and that we adhere to. So for them to understand Labuan, I would say the website. I would say understand Labuan in the sense that anything that is available in legacy finance will be able to be digitized in Labuan for as long as the regulator is happy that it will be well regulated and that they can supervise it effectively.
Fantastic. Well, that's very, very informative. And I think that's very useful to anyone who's basically looking at options as to where to get their license from. And also, Farah, I've never been to Labuan. So as a first timer, what do you think I should expect if I, go visit Labuan? Is there beaches or like restaurants? Like, is it buzzing? How will you describe it?
Depends on what. It's not as buzzing as LKF on a Friday night. That much I can tell you. Hand on heart, I'm very honest. LKF wins hands down. But it's being part of East Malaysia. It's a very welcoming culture. Okay, Labuan has a very welcoming culture because of the mixes of people. Right? So that's one thing. Every time I go to Labuan, you can see on my face, when I talk about it, I just light up. And it hurts. It kind of hurts me not to be able to visit at the minute because we're all on, with AC after COVID environment.
Of course.
But yeah, so the people, right? Seafood's great, but seafood in Hong Kong is quite good as well. Seafood in Hong Kong is quite good as well. But there's this vibe of calmness, and it's the people that I like about Labuan. It's very calming. It's a very calming place, and it's actually very cosmopolitan. Labuan IBFC itself hires about 6,000-7,000 people on the island.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so everyone's quite cosmopolitan. So over the years, it's come to be quite a cosmopolitan place, where everyone knows everybody, and we're all there serving the industry. There's a lot of diving to be had.
Amazing.
So it's one of the top wreck sites for wreck diving in the world.
Right.
Because it used to be, Labuan was, okay, my World War II history knowledge is a bit limited, but we've been told that Labuan, and we know for a fact that Labuan was a huge defense base for the Allied forces during the Second World War. And because of that, there are a lot of wrecks, shipwrecks, battleships in the waters in Labuan. So we know that there's a lot of wreck diving. It's a great wreck diving spot. Next to Labuan, half an hour on a plane, a twin prop plane, I believe you call it.
Right.
So it's very close. It's 20 minutes. You've got Kota Kinabalu, and Kota Kinabalu is by far one of the most beautiful places on earth. Like, if you haven't seen a Kota Kinabalu sunset, you haven't lived. So in a lot of instances where people are going into Labuan, what I would recommend is like a weekend in Kota Kinabalu, do a lot of snorkeling, diving there, catch a few drinks, watch the sunset, eat some really good food, fly into Labuan, work on whatever you need to do, meet the regulator, open your bank account, stuff like that, spend another night or so, and then fly out again. So it's not just Labuan that's being offered. So it's not like this remote island away from everything, right? It's next to Kota Kinabalu.
Amazing.
And Kota Kinabalu is something else.
That's really good to know. I would say I'm coming out of this interview with a ton of new information, not just about Labuan IBFC, the amazing things that you do for us as part of the Labuan Fintech Association, and hopefully to the other upcoming members that we're going to have hopefully very soon, but also learning more about how exciting Labuan is. I really can't wait until the world opens up again and I'll be able to visit.
Yeah, no, and we're just set in KL, and I really can't wait to go to Labuan. I really can't wait to just go to my island. My 9-year-old goes, Mommy, are you not going to your island? And so, for him, it's my island. And
are you originally from there, Farah?
No, but it's my island now. It's my island, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Great.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you
And I
so
hope
much,
to meet you soon.
Farah. Definitely. Take care and have a good
Take care.
afternoon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.